Honestly, that would be an amazing experiment. A big CEO of a big company saying, I'm taking the week off for exactly 1 week. All of what I would do, every decision, every sign-off is being done by AI, and just watch the fires start.
They might be self-aware.
Broadcasting live from They Might Be Self-Aware Studios, I am Hunter Powers, and we now join co-host Daniel Bishop for a dramatic reading of ChatGPT magazine.
Well, hello there, Hunter Powers. I'm Daniel Bishop, here on the podcast They Might Be Self-Aware, and I'm reading, this is a very visual thing, so I'm just going to read it aloud for those of you listening, How to Improve Your Life with ChatGPT. This is an actual, literal, real magazine that I bought from Barnes & Noble. I was in Barnes & Noble getting some other stuff and walking by the magazine rack. I did like a literal double take. And because it's just big letters on ChatGPT. I do AI stuff. What's how to improve your life with ChatGPT. Another double take. I had to pick it up. I picked it up. I've been reading through it. And there's little in here that I personally would benefit from. I've tried a bunch of the specific little tips and tricks in here. Like I'm looking right now, showing it on camera for those of you who are watching. Learn new languages. Brush up your foreign language vocabulary with AI help. Boosting specific vocabulary. When you learn a new language, you'll inevitably spend time focusing on the common phrases that are required to get by in daily interactions. But if you're in a specific profession, or there's an area of vocabulary such as meats or garden equipment that you want to focus on, ChatGPT is very good at providing the key terms. For example, I'm moving to France where I'll work as a doctor. Can you give me 10 phrases that I can practice that I might use in my work? Okay, and it's full of like 200 or whatever of these. There's stuff on like your AI travel agent and I don't know, set and track personal goals. A lot of things that many people have realized OpenAI, ChatGPT, large language models in general are good at. And it's not particularly relevant or useful to me because, again, I've been in this space. I've been using all of these since they came out. I'm aware of what you can do with it. There's going to be a couple neat tidbits in there for me and something that gives me some ideas. But what I really like about this is that there are a lot of people who don't know the stuff that I know about large language models. There's a lot of people who could be benefiting in their daily life from utilizing these new technologies that have been taking the world by storm for the last few years now. And so if a grandmother can go to Barnes & Noble and see a magazine and buy it and pick it up and read through it and then get exposed to these things and start seeing like, oh, this is what my grandkids have been telling me about. This is what the fuss is about. I can now use this to help with like, I don't know, researching knitting stuff or like planning out meals. There are so many things that the average person could be benefiting from using these technologies. And so as much as my knee-jerk reaction when seeing this was like, I cannot believe that they put this into a magazine, it's the perfect format to get this into more hands, to have more people become exposed to technology instead of just in seeing a news article or listening to like their favorite podcast about AI, for example.
Well, first, I'm laughing on the inside because that sounds remarkably like the pitch for Scientology. I used to live about a block away from their headquarters in Washington, D.C. And so I would always get a lot of like, well, they pitch technology as solutions. I don't know if you've ever looked into it. I have had it forced on.
There's like a little meter that you hold and they say you have too many aliens in your body and you have to give them a lot of money.
Yes,
yeah.
But it's all about the technology. This technology is going to enhance every part of your life. Now, separate from that, the other thing that popped in my head, and it's a wild head, you do not want to be in here, is that I do know a company that I think perhaps every employee should get a copy of this magazine. And that company is Shopify.
Who are they and why would they need a copy of that magazine?
Well, Shopify is a very popular e-commerce platform. If you have a product that you want to sell online, you can go to Shopify and they'll help you set up a store to sell it. And they're probably the industry leader in this category. It's a very large company. If you've bought things online inevitably you have used Shopify. You may have not known that you're using Shopify, but you've used Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so it is not like Amazon where you go on one site and buy a bunch of stuff. They help you put together your own
store, your own website to sell something. But their CEO, Tobi, put out a memo about a week ago saying that before anyone can hire another employee, they must first prove that that job cannot be completed with AI. And then and only then will we allow for budget to increase headcount, to hire a new human. And this memo caused a lot of feathers to be ruffled, to put it mildly.
Right. A lot of people, I think somewhat rightfully so, are saying, is this that we are being replaced by AI? And look, there is a lot of digital ink spilled. We've talked quite a bit about that. I think the memo that was put out is not quite in that direction. Obviously, the title of "No New Hires Without Proof AI Can't Do the Job" like that, that's a catchy headline. Rather, looking at the actual post, he says, what would this area look like if autonomous AI agents were already part of the team? This question can lead to really fun discussions and projects. All right, maybe that's a bit corporate speak, but the discussion is on reflexive AI usage, as in like by default, I'd be going to this to help speed me up at my task. That's now a baseline expectation at the company. And so that brings us back to the magazine, and that I think that was, among our segues, one of the better ones. So if everybody at a company, not just the programmers, the chief financial officer down to the mailroom guy, like if everybody at the company is more aware of these force multiplier, we were talking about 10x developers last episode. If everybody from marketing to finance to payroll, if all of those people were able to be 10 times as efficient, get a lot more done in a lot less time, why wouldn't you be using those tools? I would say if CEO Tobi Lütke starts absolutely axing entire departments and people and says, because AI can do this, I'm going to get rid of 80% of our workforce, that I cannot agree with. If he instead says, we're not going to hire more people without proof that this is a value add to the company, that's what every company's been doing for forever. And he is just being somewhat forward facing in that I want everyone to be using AI. And if you're not going to be using it, why should we be hiring you? Because he sees across the board, across all of the different departments, this is something that can and should be used and is helpful.
Other CEOs have
stance to be taking.
Other CEOs have weighed in, and in general, they agree with him that this is the position that you need to take as an executive running a company in this era of AI. I think if I was in the meeting, I would have raised my hand. There's one part of this that's just very unclear to me, which is how are you supposed to know that AI can do the job? So, right, I want to hire someone. I want to add another engineer to my team. How am I supposed to know that I can just use AI instead of hiring another engineer for the team? And the point being is, and which is something we did discuss on this show, there's 1,000 new AI products every single week. How am I supposed to know which ones are good, which ones can actually make a meaningful impact to the bottom line, that can actually save my team 20% of their time, 50% of the time? He said actually just not hire the person 100% of someone's time if I only use that. In order to do that, I need time to...
Threshold? Is it 100% of someone's time? Is it has to be half couldn't be done by AI?
Right, but
I don't think that there's like a hard and fast line, and no CEO should be taking that hard and fast line. Rather, it's, and I really like the term baseline expectation. If for your job, you aren't using this at all, you are likely not using all tools at your disposal. The converse to that is how much of your job could be done by it.
Right, but my point is more that if you want this, you have to give the employees explicit time to be exploring the tools, where the only expectation is that they're just coming back.
Completely replace a marketing person with just AI and see how it goes.
One day a week. I mean, this would be I have participated in C-suite activities in the past. I'm here with Toby and he's rolling this out. I say, okay, we can do this. I'm the CTO, but there's one gotcha here. One day a week, all employees, they're new, and we'll run this as an experiment, and we'll start with one team and we'll expand it out. But for 6 months, one day a week, all they do is go explore AI tooling. And at the end of the day, they write a little report, which is maybe going to a Slack channel or sending out a thing. But we give them explicit time to go and experiment where there's no expectation other than they are expanding their knowledge base and they're becoming aware of things. I'm not expecting any immediate impacts on productivity or whatever. They're allowed to. You find something you want to start using? Absolutely, start using it. But my expectation is only that you are opening your minds. And after 6 months of doing this, we're going to see how much of this is real and to what degree do we think we can actually accomplish more with these toolings today, or it's just not there yet. But without that explicit permission and explicit space to do this exploration, I think it's just a nice headline. It's not real. I mean, that would be my pushback on him. I don't think this is real. Unless
Sam Altman, the king of AI, says he's not looking to replace developers, he's looking to make them more efficient. I think, to your point then, no profession, at least yet, should be completely automated away. Famously, some episodes ago, you said that you were going to try and use Devin, an AI employee, to do coding. Ended up not doing it because it did not seem to be actually good, for example. I have definitely seen any task that I give AI from like a coding perspective, very rarely will it do an entirety of a thing completely by itself. It needs some course correction partway through. It needs me to iterate a couple of times. No, we need to change this around. I don't think, and I keep saying like we're not there yet. Of course, it's going to keep getting better over time, but still, for like the Shopify CEO saying you can't do a new hire without proof that AI can't do the job. It's all the jobs. None of the jobs can be completely
right. AI. There's another great, it's like, okay, Toby, what's one job that the AI can do? So we know not to like try that one. Just like give us the example where you were going to hire someone, but actually the AI can do it entirely.
So I choose to interpret this not as him saying there's a bunch of jobs that could be completely done by AI, but rather that people need to be, as you were describing it, exploring the space and seeing how much can I improve my own output, regardless of what department I'm in with these tools.
And that's such a better message to put out there, too. I think that's the message you want to put out as a CEO right now. And it aligns with something we were discussing in the last episode, which is, look, with all of this AI tooling, the expectations of us as a company from our consumers, the people that are using your products, they're just going to be skyrocketing. So like we have to skyrocket with them. We have to be not meeting, but exceeding our customers' expectations and the products that we're building. And the only way we're going to get there is if you are embracing these new tools, this new technology, this new Scientology that you have at your avail. And that sounds super positive versus I'm not going to let you hire anyone unless I see a detailed report about why AI can't do the job.
Well,
either that or
headline.
Tell Toby he has to replace all his employees with, like, the rest of the C-suite needs to be replaced with AI as an experiment. And you let us know how well it worked. Replace your assistant, just AI.
Replace you. Hey, Toby, take the week off. Let's see how Shopify's doing.
Take it off. Stand up an API.
What happened? Yeah. Honestly, that would be an amazing experiment. A big CEO of a big company saying, I'm taking the week off for exactly 1 week. All of what I would do, every decision, every sign off is being done by AI, and just watch the fires start. So it sounds like there's a level of trust that Toby is putting into AI. But most Americans don't trust AI or the people who are in charge of it. And I'm one of those people. I'm in this industry. Despite the fact I'm like, I just finished saying, and we should all be. boy, I don't trust it. And I don't trust the people who are making it. I love these tools and there's trust anywhere in here. What we were talking about the Llama 4 model on our last episode, and like, depending on what company, some groups are like, well, we're trying to make things more like politically centrist, and then instead you're seeing like wild swings toward the political right or the left, or it doesn't particularly matter. But the point is, like, there's bias in the models, even if it's very subtle, even if it's this, even if it's that. You, by interacting with any text or audio, whether it be with people or large language models, like, there is bias. We all have our biases, and they come through in what we say. And partially because of that, partially because we keep hearing about hallucinations and seeing objectively false things that they occasionally spit out, there is a trust gap. People don't trust the output of AIs. They don't, of large language models. They don't trust them sort of in general. And then I think very rightfully so, the people who are in charge of it, not just making it, but also helping regulate it. Congress, and, you know, lots of people like to joke about Congress, the opposite of progress, har, har, har. Our judicial system is not the snappiest in the world. Or maybe it's one of the faster ones. I don't know. But the point is, it's not really keeping up with everything that's happening in the industry, because everything is happening so fast. Constant new releases, weird edge cases constantly popping up that, like, the legal system just isn't currently equipped to deal with. And so, call it ineptitude, call it speed, call it whatever you want. There is something about the powers that be that are not properly reining things in or paving the path forward for, like, what is the responsible and best future that we can have as a society, including these new tools. And people don't find that super satisfying, I think, of a state of affairs.
We're definitely still in the move fast and break things stage of AI development. Now, I personally very much like that stage, the stage where you can kind of do anything, the stage where there's very little. Yeah, it's exciting. There's very little regulation. And we can be in that stage because there are very few real world consequences that are depending upon the outputs of these models in the immediate. Again,
that sentence is changing by the day.
Sure.
I'd say.
And as it changes more and more, that's when the regulation comes in. And there have been several attempts at regulation that haven't quite. And well, some regulation does exist, and that will increase as the outcomes of these models increases. The weight of them.
At a speed, though, and perhaps not a fast enough speed.
But why don't Americans? Well, you don't. Let's the heck with the rest of Americans. Why don't you trust the AI? Let's put the leaders aside.
I've already mentioned that, like, I would not replace an entire coding job with large language models. Even if you give it all the instructions in the world, I have to double check, and I have to make sure that it didn't implement something wrong. Or perhaps more dangerously, when you give agentic capabilities to these models, meaning, like, it isn't just a chat interface. The agent capability is its tool use and then some. It can spin off another little process that's going to go use your computer and install software for you, for a very specific example. When large language models hallucinate, depending on the family of model, like if it's one of the OpenAI models or one of the Anthropic models or Mistral or whoever, Google, the kinds of hallucinations that they tend to make, and frankly, even across the board, some of them are going to be consistent for whatever ineffable reason of, like, something in the training data just makes them say this thing by the wrong name. And that thing could be the name of, like, a package of software to install on your computer. I've actually run into this problem where it was not exactly installing a new package, but rather it was trying to, like, do a command a certain way with the Amazon. Is AWS Web Services, I guess? I've never even said it.
Amazon Web Services is what AWS
and
is.
AWS, there was, like, a specific command that I was asking it to do, and I tried 3 different models, and they all used the same wrong, like, flag passed into it. I think it was maybe, like, an outdated version, for example. They all just knew what had been out there like 6 months ago. But still, if you were to say, I need to install this new piece of software, please go do it for me. And it says, well, I know what piece of software that is. It's called such and such doesn't exist. You run into an error and you can't install the software you wanted unless such and such does exist. But it isn't the thing that the AI model thought it was. It's malware that somebody put together and released under the name such and such. And that common enough hallucination where people noticed it, that someone bothered to put together a virus or whatever and plop it out for anybody to download. And then you tell the AI, I need to install something that does such and such. Boy, do I have the software package for you. And then you are up a creek without a paddle. Digital, of course. Both the creek and the paddle.
This is the sometimes referred to as the S-bomb poisoning attack.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess just
squatting. I mean, like there's a bunch of like terms that are roughly designed to say like, and the same sort of thing has existed way pre-AI, but like on the internet of slightly misspelled version of a website brings you to either malware or to a fake version of the site that's designed to like get your information. I'm sure if I was to go to like bankpfamerica.com instead of America, P and O being right next to, surely somebody has bought that site and there's not anything good being done with it.
So for those outside of the software development space, what you may not know or realize is that 99.9% of the software that you use, from giant companies to like little independent, everything, it is all built on lots of other pieces of software. They probably have
one software.
Thousands, right?
Yeah.
When we start building a new software program, whether it's AI or not, we bring in all, they're referred to as dependencies, but they are other, we can think of them as like mini software programs. Oh, I'm going to use that program from over there and that program from over there and this program from over there. And most of these are open source, meaning the code that was used to implement them is free. It's freely available, and you can freely bring all of these things in. So for example,
it's a thankless task to like be the guy who updates. There was like a famous, I think, JavaScript package that like some guy just said, hey, I'm done, and then like took it down, and a portion of the internet just like broke for a couple of days until it got put back. And it was like this tiny function that like adds a space or some absolute nonsense like that. But so many things were built on top of it and built on top of that and built on top of that. One does not build a house all at once. You don't just have house. You have the framing, which is made of different kinds of wood, which is held together with fasteners and wood screws specifically, which are made at a manufactory that needs raw materials. And like, imagine everything that goes into building a house. That's Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word, or any other program, whatever. Chrome, you know, the web browsers use, any of them, are just one piece of software. It is built by and reliant on so many other little things. And some bad people have taken the name of one of those packages and swapped 2 letters or whatever. And that's a malicious version of the package.
So when AI is writing software and writing code, which is definitely one of the primary use cases of AI, when it's going to write something that it knows it can use one of these other programs to do, it will often just say, okay, well, let's just delegate this task to this well-known piece of software and we'll let it do it. I don't need to implement it for you. But as you mentioned, and this is a known thing, sometimes it hallucinates and it just makes something up. It makes up in its mind, oh yeah, I think there's already a piece of software that does that. I'm going to use that. And it will, when it's writing the code, it'll say import. It'll put in this fictitious name of something. Yeah.
I've run into that multiple times. And so I have stopped letting it write imports, and I've stopped letting it install or like add something to my list of dependencies without me double checking, manually going on the internet and saying like, is this a real package? What is its purpose? Because I've already been bitten, but not like of malware. It's been a thing that didn't actually exist, but still knowing that this kind of thing happens, I straight up don't trust AI to get that 100% right 100% of the time now. Granted, people also make that mistake too, but now this is 2 pairs of eyes, so to speak, on it. So all of that back to Americans not necessarily trusting AI or the people in charge of it. There's this.
So then we should just hire people because we can trust. I'm going to put a job post up, and I can trust that the people coming in are real humans that can really do the job. Is that fair? Is that a fair assessment? Do I have a good plan here?
No, it is not fair.
Darn it.
The job search process is the worst. Anyone who is currently searching for a job, my heart goes out to you. It is not a fun process, and it's getting less fun by the day. Same thing happened with like online dating. It started off as real people actually trying to like connect and date, and then it just got completely filled up with like people who are selling escort services or like, OnlyFans or God knows what. And apparently the online dating scene is just an absolute nightmare these days. I am not dating, so I do not know what it's like, but I haven't heard good things. I've heard very much the opposite.
Daniel, that's why I'm going to post my job description. I'm going to put the top, please. This is not an AI position. I'm looking for a real human.
Right. Okay. So
I needed this real human
for
job.
The job market.
Yes.
We're saying that the problem also exists where there are not real people applying to jobs. And I do liken it very much to dating because it's people on one side of a company and then someone else and like, are we the right match for each other? It's the same thing as dating in my mind. And it has very much some of the same problems where some of the people who are applying to jobs aren't real. Granted, some of the jobs being posted aren't real either because they're just having to post it for legal reasons and it was never something you could apply to in the first place. One of the reasons why applying to jobs absolutely sucks. But even the applicants aren't real at this point. And there's two kinds of not real. People who straight up don't exist at all in the first place. Mm-hmm. Or much worse, I think, because like if you couldn't get a hold of them, you can't get a hold of them. The worst option is someone who can go through the interview process and has documentation that here's the scanned copy of my driver's license and all that kind of stuff. And they go through the process and you were never interviewing the actual person who's going to show up that you ended up hiring. Because
I've had that happen to me, just to be clear.
Face or their voice or emails or just even before like AI, sometimes you just have someone interview and then someone who kind of looks like them shows up.
Yes, I've had this happen.
Yeah.
And the person, it was a remote position. And the person that interviewed didn't want to put their camera on. And by the way, when you're doing interviews, like it is, it's a little bit of the times that like you don't force people because like you're not supposed to be judging someone on what they look like and their appearance and all that. So you know what? If they just want to be a voice on the Zoom call, you let them. They answer their questions. They do it. Why do you need to see them in order to decide whether you can hire? I mean, I think that's like a fair question to ask at a minimum. Maybe they answer that. But great, this person excelled at the interview. And then they showed up on day one and you saw them, but something was off and they didn't have any of the skill sets that they displayed in the interview. And I'm convinced that there was someone else on the interview. Now, and this is probably like 6 years ago that happened. But now people are interviewing for jobs where their whole sort of presupposition is I'm just going to do the job with AI. You tell me the work. Yeah, I'll vibe code my way through the position.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not like a heinous proposition that you could do that.
If you can get the output that is being desired for that role, yeah, sure. Why not have anyone do it? But if you interviewed and could like in real time answer certain kinds of questions and display a certain competency, and then that person doesn't show up,
well, they can do it there is now a growing area of tooling specifically for this where you have an overlay while you're doing the interview that's listening to the interview and generating real-time responses to the questions. But again, so like that, it's fake and you are cheating. We agree, and you're crossing some ethical boundaries.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you can answer the questions, if you can do the work, can't you? If you can do the work, can't you do the work? No matter what the tooling is, yes, I'm doing it.
The interview process needs to reflect that, or you need to have like specific roles where you say the minimum qualifications for this role aren't that you have to have a degree and have to have any competency with C++ or whatever it ends up being. Like that's. I think that's the crux of the matter right there. If you say the minimum requirements for this role are you have to be good at this stuff to do the job, even if you don't actually have to be good at that to do the job, like if you're going to say these are minimum requirements for the job and you don't have those minimum requirements, okay, there you go.
Right.
Is it as simple as that? Am I
No, yeah, well, there are two parts to this. Yeah, one part is, okay, if you need to be able to actually meet the requirements. And to that end, a lot of the big tech companies, the classic Microsoft, Apple, Google, are moving back to required in-person interviews to directly address this. You got to show up. You got to go up to the whiteboard and solve some dumb algorithm question.
Right.
But I think we need to spend more time asking ourselves if this person can do the job when heavily augmented with AI. Like, maybe that's the position you should be looking for. And you don't see that job. I haven't seen that job listing yet, which is, here's the job that needs to be done. I don't care how you do it. Use whatever you want to do it. You will ultimately be responsible for the output, and apply away. And I think that there are probably way more of those positions, especially when we talk about, AI replacing some jobs. Okay, it does not really replacing it, but heavily augmenting it and opening it up to humans that want to be the curators or middle managers for AI. We're not going to train it, but here's the job. And maybe that's sort of an interesting place to start, which is, I don't care about your background. You're going to come in, you're going to go through the test. Use as much AI as you want on the test. If we like the output, we'll hire you. Because we can't yet just give this to the AI. We need a human. If you want to be that human?
But one of the reasons why I don't trust the AI coder, for example, is because without knowing about coding, it can be very hard to get past, here's a generic template of a thing. You need some of that experience and depth of knowledge to say, this isn't the right approach for these reasons, whether they be business reasons or otherwise. And you can only grab the appropriate context to give it to get the right output if you know about that. So I think that we can't be completely saying, you don't have to know Bupkis. I just don't want to be watching Klein all day because I'm already watching it for my job. I need someone else to watch it for their own other job. You don't have to know anything. Just watch that and make the pull requests, and I'll merge them in when they're ready. I don't think I would be trusting the output of that. Even if it did technically work, I wouldn't feel like it is necessarily being designed correctly. Like, there's a larger risk of something being done that's going to have weird unintended consequences, I think is my biggest concern there.
There is a larger risk, and you have to start architecting your systems, and I would argue your companies, to account for that risk. And if you can, there's potentially tremendous upside. And I'll give a real world example. So I worked at a company where we monitored the price for every product in every grocery store in the United States. And so there were a lot of chains where we needed that data, and the data was available in all sorts of different ways. In different places, okay, well, this Aldi's is different than Giant's, different than Harris Teeter, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we architected a system where we had a contract, like a technical contract on how we want to receive this data. And we would then outsource the method of collecting the data. So I need data from, I'll stick with Harris Teeter. I need produce data from Harris Teeter. Here's my contract to receive the produce data. Here's how I'm going to evaluate whether it is within the norm of what Harris Teeter data looks like. I don't care about your implementation. You're going to give me a containerized, which just basically means self-contained implementation that gets the data in. And I'm going to test it for 1 week. And if I get all the data in, then I'm going to say, you have successfully implemented this contract and I will pay you for that work. And when it breaks, I am going to take your container and chuck it in the garbage and put my contract back up and say, hey, I need a new program to get this data. It is a sort of like one-time ephemeral artifact that will work for some unknown period of time, but I can model that. And it's completely self-contained. And all it's doing is outputting data into my system. And I've got checks to make sure the data is within the normal ranges, et cetera. But I don't care about your implementation.
For years and years of like, well, we outsourced our team to a really cheap group of people and got worse results back, and we had to redo it anyways. And so it cost us ultimately more time and more money. Is that not what we're going to be seeing? But instead of outsourced people, it's going to be outsourced work to large language models that you end up having to throw out and redo again anyways, possibly after having made some expensive mistakes?
Yes, but the efficiency of being able to throw it out and redo it, that's
faster.
Well, cheaper, right? So
okay.
Like if it's so yes, in general, when you outsource a piece of software to a company, the result that you get back for many reasons is far inferior to hiring engineers at the actual company to implement it. But I would suggest if I could hire 1,000 outsourced companies to build the feature, that one of them would outperform my internal engineer. But at that point, it wouldn't be cost effective. But once we're able to leverage more and more AI to do these implementations, I think that cost effective thing changes. And you need to architect your system to be able to do this, to account for all of the vulnerabilities, the software build of material, poisoning, etc. And this is probably true for, again, any position at any company. We're talking about engineering because that's what we know the best. But in accounting, I need a system that can go through everyone's receipts and identify items that are out too far outside of the norm. And so you develop your spec. Here's the things, and here's how I'm going to test it. And then you don't actually care what the system that that's reading the receipts and generating the data for you does, as long as it's working. And when it stops working, you chuck it and say, okay, please give me a new system to do this. And I think that AI could make that model far more effective.
Are you going to put up a job description for any company that you work at?
Well, not now. Now they told me it's all.
Are you willing to literally put someone's money where your mouth is and say, I'll put up a job where anybody with no minimum requirements?
So I've absolutely done variations of this. So I've hired engineers before where I'm explicitly clear in the job description. I don't care what your resume says. Now, by the way, those job descriptions usually pay less, which kind of makes sense. If you say, like, I'm going to cut the resume, don't care what's on your resume. I'm going to open it up. And part of those, and I don't think it would work as well today, was we would develop coding challenges as part of the application where they needed to complete something that simulated a day in the life activities. I think you participated, not as someone with no resume, but
apprenticeship program where I was like, I don't care what's on your resume.
Don't care your resume.
We're going straight to the take-home interview. Enjoy.
And when I manage engineers, as long as the company will allow it, my general philosophy is I don't care how you're doing the work. I don't care. I mean, don't break any laws, but I don't care. Use all the AI tools that you want. I personally don't care if you're subcontracting it out to someone in 5 different countries, whatever, as long as you're not breaking any the laws or, exposing IP. But I only care about the final product. Is it good? Did you do a good job? I'm going to look at your final product.
Utilitarian view. And I, perhaps because I worked under you, I would say I also take broadly that view of, like, if I've been hired to do job, as long as job gets done.
And done well. Yes.
And well, sure. And in a fashion. And yeah. So
I would be willing to go like the step further and, which I think I like almost do now, but going the step further, just being super explicit about it. And in a job rec, I wonder if I'd just be flooded by, crap, and the process of narrowing it down to someone who could actually deliver would be there. But I guess you would also want to develop a new version of a test, a new benchmark that OpenAI can gain or Meta can gain to show that, yes, hire us.
I mean, that's the take-home test. You could just say, I'm hiring for this. Here's the take-home test. Show me this thing working or in a delivered form or whatever. And pick your favorite, or have an LLM pick your favorite for you. Really make it as impersonal as possible. Now there's 2 layers of impersonness between you and the maybe not even a real person on the other end of what's being hired. Maybe it's just another it's GPT 4.5 that they unplugged from the rest of the internet, put in a robot shell and said, okay, now you can go start making some money working for Hunter because it's become self-aware.
You heard it here first, folks. They might be self-aware. Now on twice a week. You like the show, you like the vibe, hit the subscribe. I think that works. If you like the vibe, hit subscribe.
All right. I like that.
And we shall appear once more in front of you, whether it's on YouTube where you can watch us mugging at the camera, or just listen to our beautiful voices on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or really wherever you receive your audio programming. If you search for They Might Be Self-Aware, it tends to just show up and kind of like sinks its teeth in, won't really leave, and
I've
start seeing
started
the
seeing
shorts.
our shorts on YouTube, like on the top of my recommended feed, which is surreal.
Yes, I have
And
had
other people
people.
have been messaging me too, saying
Yes.
that we're starting to pop up. So like,
You're starting to show up.
we're getting.
What is this?
You got in on the ground floor. Congratulations. You get grandfathered in to all the good stuff.
Welcome, everyone, to the future, because you are listening to
They might be self-aware.